My name is Zach Bacon from Lifetime Fitness, and I'm going to share how Lifetime kind of stepped into the gap in an area of need between the business and IT. I'm glad we have a good mix of people from each group here, because we had probably the very common situation of, on the business side, there was the feeling that IT wasn't being responsive enough to the requests for data, for the requests for changes to the report. And on the IT side, there was the sense that the business didn't know what it wanted, kept changing its mind, and wanted things on unreasonable timelines. So I'm sure some of you can relate to both sides of that story. Lifetime Fitness, we're a publicly traded healthy way of life company based out of Minnesota. If you're any of our markets, you've seen our 100,000 square foot facilities with the 2-story water slides, the cherrywood lockers. They're very nice facilities. And we have revenues approaching $1 billion. For Salesforce, we have approximately 4 million leads in our Salesforce database right now, and that grows by 100 to 150,000 per month. We started with a very small B2B implementation in 2005 and did our primary business, our B2C implementation, in 2008. 800 users, expanded to 1,000 so far. We're targeting 4,000 to 5,000 with the potential to leverage Salesforce.com in our organization. We had replaced a struggling Siebel CRM implementation. If you look at a top 10 list of the things not to do when doing a CRM implementation, we had done most of those with our Siebel implementation. Unintentionally, in very good spirits, but it left a lot of deep wounds. There was a very hesitant attitude about bringing in new things and going too big too soon. So we started with lead management and Salesforce automation, a one-to-one replacement with what we had done with Siebel. We've since expanded to additional groups, general managers, business administrators, our collections department, just in case somebody stops paying their health club dues, and we're piloting with our personal training staff. We have IT-supported integrations into our legacy member management system, our source of record about who our member is, and also into our enterprise data warehouse. And Cognos, which in a very similar situation, is our primary place of doing our enterprise-wide reporting. So where was our bottleneck? Where did we need to step into? It was in agility and availability. How can we quickly make the right data available to the right people in an automated and an accessible fashion? As Salesforce rapidly expanded and we went beyond the limitations or the limited resources we had been put towards Siebel and realized the potential of what we could do with Salesforce, we found ourselves needing to add additional fields, sometimes additional objects, and as that happened, we would want to replicate this data to make it available for reporting for other groups. We had very constrained IT resources. When you look at what the business was asking for versus what IT's funding was available, there was a mismatch there, and that meant there were very long wait times even to get started on your project. If you wanted to get at the data that was available in any sort of custom fashion, you needed to know SQL. IT would grant you access directly to the data, but you would have to figure out the table joins and how to pull it yourself. Some business units figured out how to do this, but everybody had their own way of joining the tables or interpreting the data, so you ended up with a lot of different versions of the truth. And there was no extract automation outside of our IT division, which meant any business division that had a process that relied on these manual extracts of data were going through a daily, multi-step process, sometimes even in the mornings on the weekends, to provide this 7-day-a-week ad hoc reporting functionality that the sales team had come to rely on. Finally, we had multiple business management databases, multiple versions of the truth. We had our Cognos data warehouse, but we also had our marketing analytics database, which had expanded to provide sales reporting capabilities across the organization as well. We had a number of people creating ad hoc reports in Excel, compiled from multiple sources and sent out to the executive management team on the field on a daily basis. It was very difficult to keep all of these in sync. So this was the problem we faced, and we saw Informatica Cloud as a solution to take care of this problem. When you only have the data loader to get data out of Salesforce, that wonderful tool that just lets anybody go in and access whatever data they want, you will get data all over the place. This person will be replicated into this database. This person will have it in their ad hoc spreadsheet. Somebody will have a 2-month-old Excel document that may or may not have up-to-date information on it. And then in terms of security, when you give them access to the data loader, unless you do some profile management on the Salesforce side, you're pretty much giving everybody access to anything they want. And as was mentioned, sometimes it's nice to help people focus a little bit and not expose them necessarily to so much at one time. So when we brought in Informatica Cloud, it was a little confusing in the IT department because we already had Informatica on-premise. And the question was, if we already had Informatica, why are we buying Informatica again? We didn't have the on-premise Salesforce connector, so that wasn't an option for using Informatica on-premise with Salesforce. And we said, hey, let us give this a shot. It's very economical. It's going to allow us to do some things. And by the way, we aren't going to ask you guys to do anything. We wanted to be able to do point-and-click replication and exports. We didn't want to have to train the business users how to use the data loaders, how to join files, how to do a VLOOKUP in Excel. We wanted a solution that would allow us to click one button, export that data, and get it to wherever the user happened to be. And they were in a lot of different places. In some cases, it was just it was somebody up in the marketing department who was compiling statistics on our latest sales contest. So they would need a CSV file that would end up on their desktop. In other cases, it was a vendor doing a data scrub or data cleansing for us, and they would have an FTP site that rather than getting an Excel document, emailing it over to them, having them put it in their files, we were able to export directly onto their FTP site in an automated fashion. And sometimes, in the case of our marketing analytics database, it was an actual SQL database that somebody else had built that we wanted to connect into and dump the data in. So this gave us huge flexibility. Rather than manually written SQL queries that went into Excel files that then had to be emailed and imported into the system, we were able to take the data and directly put it in to whatever system it needed on whatever schedule was needed. And the automation and the setup was incredible. When we initially configured it, gave it access to Salesforce, gave it access to the SQL database, gave it access to the FTP site. From that point on, when somebody said, hey, is there a way that I can get this new information we're capturing in Salesforce just one time? Sure. And literally in about 10 minutes, you could have a job running that would provide them with that data. In some cases, it was more complicated. In some cases, it took an hour or two. But we've been very spoiled with this because this is the sort of thing that because of the, some of the complexity that goes on in the Cognos data warehouse, in the Informatica on-premise, the processes that our IT division follows, and also just the fact that you would have to wait a couple weeks to get your project in the queue, we were literally able to go from wait times from weeks to months to year and a half down to, why, yes, I can get you that data on a regular basis in about 10 minutes. So hold on, I'll have it right there for you. And that was a huge win for our business because as we continued to expand Salesforce and other systems, there was a huge need to get that data. So the results, at the current time at Lifetime, we do a daily replication into business managed reporting databases. We're not currently interfacing with the Cognos data warehouse. But for the marketing analytics team that had their homegrown SQL queries, they're now getting the full set of data from Salesforce updated on a daily basis. We're able to take things that with the data loader used to take 5 or 6 steps, export this table, then this table, then this table, and do a VLOOKUP in Excel in an entire process. We're now able to use Informatica Cloud to hit one button, or just schedule it so we don't have to hit the button, and have it automatically do those lookups for us, giving us the file or the SQL table in the appropriate format already all joined up for us. As I mentioned, we place CSV files directly on our vendors' FTP sites, removing the need for somebody to click a button, download the file, email it over to the vendor, and have somebody there to receive it. It's just on their FTP site where they're looking for it. And as our business units come to us and say, hey, we need this, we need that, we're able to very quickly get them what they want. Because the business will take the path of least resistance to getting what they want. So if you cannot provide the fastest service to them, they will find another way to get at the data they need, and it might not be a quality source of data, or it might instill some bad habits that you're trying to avoid in terms of getting everybody on the same page and one version of the truth. We have some recommendations that we ran into based on what we ran into. The first one is start small, don't boil the ocean. And I don't mean that in the cliche sense of don't try to do everything at once, you got to start small, da-da-da. What I mean is start really, really, really small. I was actually just speaking to a new Informatica customer talking about some of the challenges they had with their IT team and there's processes to prevent the business from getting into the data warehouse and mucking with the data, which, by the way, is a very good idea, and I support that. Business users can do a lot of damage if you let them directly into the data warehouse with too powerful of a tool. So the IT team wasn't used to the fact that there was these Informatica Cloud tools that could actually restrict the business's ability to cause damage while still allowing them to get at the data they needed quickly. And you can get stuck in this policy cycle of this is the way we do things, therefore you can't do that. If you have an agile tool, but you don't have the agile processes in your organization, you're going to lose a lot of the value. So when I say start small, I mean don't start in places where you know there's going to be contentious. Don't start in places where you know you're going to have bottlenecks. Our first job in Informatica was literally sending a CSV file to somebody on a daily basis. They had been doing a manual extract. We said, hey, let us use you as our use case. Let us help you get that file. We'll learn how to use the tool, how it works. You'll start getting your file on a daily basis. All of a sudden, 10 other hands popped up saying, can you do that for me too? And we established a process, and we established a way of doing things that gained credibility with our IT team because they saw we could manage a system without making everything blow up. The business was very happy with us because we were able to respond to their needs, and we didn't start by asking for direct access to the core data of the company. We recommend one business owner to coordinate the job creation and troubleshoot. It takes so little time to set up a job in Informatica on demand that you don't need 10 different cooks in the kitchen all creating their jobs and managing their jobs. Just have one person, maybe with somebody else you can hand off some of the jobs to, who on an as-needed basis creates the job, modifies the job, so you have some semblance of organization in there. Use that cloud data integration to move towards one version of the truth. It would have been very easy for us to use this tool, which can automatically send data anywhere, to just start automatically sending data anywhere and end up with a worse proliferation problem than when we started with data over here and data over there. We were able to use this tool to take that marketing analytics database and give it additional data it didn't have access to before so that it could start becoming a more centralized source of data for people that had previously relied on ad hoc jobs. We were able to consolidate into this database, getting rid of the ad hoc jobs as we went. As I mentioned, you need to become the path of least resistance to avoid rogue integrations, because we still have people using the data loader if they feel that we are not responsive enough. So by being the most responsive, you will make sure that you know what data is going where and are able to help keep people on the same page. And most importantly, keep an open relationship with IT. It's not a competition. The breakthrough for Lifetime came when we said, how about this? The IT division manages the data integrations into the Cognos data warehouse. We want to keep that the same. Yet it's a struggle for you and a pain point to be able to respond to the business at the rate they want with these requests for data that they keep changing their minds about. How about we take that pain point off your shoulders? And we form the symbiotic relationship where we handle the initial iterations of what do you want the data to look like, oh, you want this change, you want that change. And once we get into a pattern, we hand that off to IT and say, hey, can you add this to your standardized integrations, your data warehouse? That works out very well because it means the Informatica Cloud team has fewer integrations that we're managing. It means that we're working very closely with IT, who is expanding the utility of the data that they're offering, but you're using the right tool for the right job. You're using a very agile, very iterative, very quick-to-change tool for the very quick-to-change new business processes, new ideas that come along, and you're using a very robust, a traditional on-premise tool that our IT department has relied on for a long time to manage those jobs that don't change as often. In the future, we're going to consolidate onto two paths. One is the self-service data replication, as I mentioned, the agile, iterative, what do you need tomorrow type of jobs that you didn't need yesterday, and using IT replication on the Informatica platform. We're going to offload those jobs to IT as they standardize, and certain lead lists still do get generated outside of Salesforce. We haven't completely standardized that part of our business. So as you've noticed, most of my use cases for Lifetime Fitness are export-based. We're taking data from Salesforce and sending it to people. We're starting to move into a place now where we're starting to use it not just to get data out of Salesforce, but to bring data back into Salesforce again.